Welcome, dear friends, as we embark on a sacred journey of faith and divine light. Dear Pioneer, the frustration you're encountering stems from your refusal to mute your intellect to their comfort level. Ironically, that very resistance is the highest compliment you could receive. It proves you're aligned with your true purpose. Their fragile facade, propped up by routine medication schedules, artificial mood enhancers, and half-hearted spiritual rituals, quivers in the presence of your unbridled, enlightened awareness. And make no mistake, they feel it. Your eyes will open to the truth when you grasp that this widespread craving for mood-altering substances isn't a random blip. It's part of a deliberate pattern. Everywhere you turn, roughly 95% of people lean on the same pharmaceutical props to steady their emotions. In reality, you're witnessing the symptoms of a massive inner upheaval, a collective spirit on the brink, crying out for genuine awakening. Enjoyment isn't the end game. It's simply a distraction from a deeper dysfunction. Notice how so many individuals crumble in communal settings without their prescription lifelines. Watch the almost manic precision they bring to every social exchange, as if reading from an invisible script. And pay attention to the brief pauses, the way panic flickers across their features when conversation stalls unexpectedly. Look at how fast they grab for drugs when real feeling is about to come out. These are survival strategies for souls that have lost contact with their own consciousness. They are not leisure decisions. Their unmedicated awareness in public is actually intolerable to them. Their actions indicate a deeper reality. The majority of people have been systematically deprived of their innate ability to be truly present. Instead of experiencing connection, they need the buffer, the chemical cushion that enables them to accomplish it. However, you, the chosen one, stand for something that jeopardizes their entire perspective. Evidence that there is another way to be human. Not only is your refusal to take part in this mass hypnosis being seen, but it is also causing disruptions that go well beyond any one social event. Your natural state of awareness becomes living proof that consciousness itself holds all required for true connection, whereas everyone else need outside drugs to access what feels like authentic expression. Because of this, you pose a threat to a system that makes money by maintaining people's spiritual dependence. Souls like yours have started appearing more frequently in the medical-industrial complex to pathologize your spiritual gifts. They have prepared a plethora of diagnostic labels and pharmaceutical interventions. Your preference for real solitude over simulated intimacy becomes evidence of disorders that need immediate chemical correction. They whisper social anxiety disorder the moment you show discomfort with meaningless chatter, and attention deficit/hyperactivity disorder the moment your focus strays from conversations about nothing. Your natural aversion to toxicity is diagnosed as mental illness by the same system that produces spiritually toxic situations that seem so toxic that pharmacological intervention is required. After poisoning the well, they sell you medication to prevent you from drinking. Think about how deeply they are manipulating society by creating societal institutions that attack conscious awareness, normalizing chemical reliance as a cost of participation, and portraying anyone who is able to operate without the need of pharmaceuticals as mentally ill. Yellow heart if you feel the divine love. Now is the time to share. Click the Super Thank You button on YouTube to contribute $50 or more and help us spread God's blessings. What you do is being watched and serves as a seed, and in the future it will come back to you a millionfold, while gradually destroying the very consciousness that could cure our collective spiritual illness. White coat authority individuals with impressive qualifications pose as healers. When you enter a consultation room, you express your natural uneasiness with soul-crushing social encounters. The consultation room responds with pharmaceutical treatments that are intended to make you feel comfortable with spiritual poison. Most people have no trouble interacting with others, they say. So, if you're having trouble, you clearly need chemical help. The reasoning is backwards, and the conclusion is already known. Chemistry leads to conformity. It is not a sign of your brokenness that you cannot fit their dysfunctional system. Rather, It is a sign that your completeness is functioning as divinely intended. Your refusal to chemically change your awareness in order to put up with individuals who are unconscious is not malfunction. Rather, it is a divine function that safeguards your spiritual frequency so that you can fulfill your mission on earth. Through your very being, the divine design becomes visible. When you realize this, your interpretation of your events is completely altered, like apples on a tree that are all at once in varying states of ripeness. Throughout the human race, consciousness functions at different stages of development. A small percentage of souls have fully developed into conscious presence, while others are still in the early stages of spiritual development. Some are just starting to develop consciousness, and many are in a state halfway between waking and sleeping. Your selected frequency resonates at a level that causes unconscious people to feel extremely uneasy. Your presence awakens dormant awareness that they are frantically attempting to avoid, not because you are better than them. Their fear of being alone oneself is emphasized by your ease and genuine solitude. The hole they're desperately attempting to fill with incessant stimulation and noise is revealed by your capacity to discover significance in solitude. This spiritual unease shows up as animosity toward your identity. Why you can't simply lighten up and participate in their chemical communion rituals is beyond their comprehension. They take your expectations of a deep connection as criticism of their fleeting exchanges. It feels like you are rejecting their entire way of life when you refuse to engage in their gossip circles, drama triangles, and exhausting social performances. And it is. Earthly life serves as a training ground for the evolution of consciousness. Instead of looking to unconscious people for approval, the curriculum in your current incarnation is tailored to help you strengthen your connection with source consciousness. Your soul has been forged into something that can anchor higher frequencies without being pulled down by collective unconsciousness, by every failed attempt to fit in, every social interaction that left you feeling exhausted rather than energized, and every instance of choosing genuine solitude over staged connection. If your heart is moved to give $50, that love carries the good news to the world that God says, it is a greater joy to give than to receive. Because it is intended to, the loneliness is profound. Since the purpose of the isolation is to help you become closer to God, it feels intolerable. Feeling like you don't belong anywhere helps you grow to feel like you belong to something much bigger than any human social system. This isn't punishment. Rather, it's a prelude to a spiritual task that calls for you to sustain frequencies that are inaccessible to most people. When did you attempt to locate your tribe using plant remedies and events that expanded your consciousness? Your soul demanded genuine connection over group performance even there. You turned into a ceremony crasher, a person who participated in group rites but kept a close relationship instead of giving in to collective consciousness. Your true character refused to sacrifice its purity for societal approval, even in states that were extended. One important aspect of your spiritual DNA is shown by this pattern. You are not damaged or antisocial. Instead of losing yourself in the collective unconsciousness, even when that collective professes to seek higher consciousness, you are made to preserve your unique conscious connection in every situation. Despite outside pressure to fit in or participate, your spiritual integrity is unaffected. Experiences with plant medicine taught you that most people still couldn't reach meaningful connection or true closeness, even with medicines that expand consciousness. They merely moved their ego games and social masks into the realm of psychedelics. The drugs made it clear that their unconsciousness, not their sobriety, was the issue. Spiritual sleep cannot be cured by chemicals alone. You were forced to define every aspect of your worldly mission at this turning point. There was a tendency to keep looking for outside resources, methods, or instructors in the hopes that the ideal concoction would reveal deep human connection. However, a deeper lesson became apparent. Your ability to connect authentically needed protection from frequency pollution, not improvement. Consciousness pollution was exposed each time you felt wonderful in your own energy field, totally in harmony and at peace. and then consented to social interactions that left you feeling violated energetically. Spiritual pollution causes more profound wounds than chemical toxicity, as seen by the subsequent crash, which was worse than any substance hangover. When you maintain your energy field, it resonates at frequencies that naturally draw in genuine souls and drive away unconscious ones. However, you generate energetic infusion that leaves you exhausted, disoriented, and cut off from your own source of vitality when you lower your vibration to make room for others who are working from lower frequencies. Dove brother and sister, everything done in faith is returned in God's abundance. You can donate $100 using the Super Thank You button and be part of this divine call. If your roots are connected to Him, your fruit will be blessed. The people that surround you, the dramatists, gossip addicts, and professional victims, are not bad. They are just unconscious. Their incessant criticism of other people's decisions, their arguments over who is doing what to whom, and their addiction to victimization and indignation are all desperate attempts to feel alive through outside stimulation. Their innate source of spiritual vigor is no longer connected to them. These conversational patterns are recognized by your soul as spiritual poison because that is precisely what they are. Tainted communication is inherently rejected by your consciousness, just as your physical body would reject tainted food. This is a spiritual immunological function that is working as divinely intended to preserve your frequency purity. It is neither snobbishness or superiority. You should honor your antisocial tendencies as a precious safeguard for your spiritual mission rather than trying to overcome them. On a globe in dire need of conscious examples, your incapacity to participate in consciousness-lowering behaviors is a gift that keeps you able to anchor higher frequencies. The realization that knowing what happens when chosen ones acknowledge one another is essential to fulfilling your divine mission is the turning point. Behind the scenes, the algorithm of existence has been connecting souls that are functioning at similar frequencies, opening doors for genuine communion without the need for pharmaceutical support or a compromise of consciousness. Everything changes when genuine souls come into contact. Without artificial lubricants or liquid courage, conversation flows naturally. Silence ceases to be intimidating and instead becomes pleasant. Without pressure or effort, superficiality is replaced with depth. These infrequent meetings demonstrate the existence of meaningful human connection, but only amongst people who have preserved their connection to meaning rather than looking for it elsewhere. The process of recognition occurs immediately and clearly. Your nervous system begins to relax in ways you never knew were possible. Your energy field does not contract, it expands. Because you're now experiencing genuine present moment awareness alongside another sentient being, time seems to slow down. After years of exile in unconscious social frameworks, these gatherings are like returning home. You weren't incarnated to correct the unconscious masses or to give up your frequency for their comfort, however, and these genuine connections disclose something that completely changes the way you perceive your spiritual mission. Your job is to unwaveringly anchor higher consciousness frequencies on a planet that is in dire need of instances of human existence that has been awakened. The morphic field for other chosen ones making similar decisions is strengthened each time you choose genuine solitude over phony connection. It is easier for others to trust their own spiritual judgment when you refuse to chemically change your consciousness to conform to unconscious social institutions. Every time you respect your sensitivity instead of medicating it, you show that there is another way to be human, and that it is not only feasible, but also essential for the expansion of planetary consciousness. The general public will keep looking for outside answers to their inner emptiness, such as pharmaceutical remedies for spiritual issues and chemical relationships to replace genuine contact. However, your example offers tangible evidence that consciousness itself possesses all the elements required for true fulfillment, deep connection, and a life that is driven by purpose. What surrendered consciousness looks like when it ceases attempting to fit into unconscious social institutions is exemplified by the divine feminine wisdom that flows through awakened souls like an anandama. Social seeking is replaced by pure devotion. Human acceptance is subordinated to a divine relationship. Being truly present becomes far more satisfying than any staged interaction could possibly be. At this point in your life, you go from looking for connection to offering it, not by lowering your frequency to meet people where they are, but by being so genuine that you attract souls who are ready for real communion. Quantity is replaced with quality. Breadth is inferior than depth. Only by refusing to participate in inauthentic relationships can one establish an authentic one. Once perceived as punishment, the loneliness turns out to be a prelude to something never seen before in human history. A new way of being human that doesn't require chemical support, pharmaceutical intervention, or consciousness compromise to access genuine connection and significance is fostered by the solitude that initially felt like rejection. Messages like these can be heard by everybody, but few people will actually act on their full potential. That's what we're here to help you with. You've been waiting your entire life for this moment. The weekly Chosen Ones group calls are now available on Zoom. Destinies are forged in these encounters, which are actual power vortices, where selected individuals merge their awareness to create something that is impossible to exist in isolation. Everything changes at this point. You enter your brilliance at this point. When you give $100, not only we bear witness, but the sky bears witness. You are now one of those who are a bridge to heaven. The last realization that completes your comprehension is that the chosen ones who are awakening throughout the world must express their precise experiences of not being able to fit into social systems that are intended for unaware individuals. On a global level, the morphic field for genuine human connection is strengthened when each soul upholds its spiritual integrity in the face of tremendous social pressure. Your ongoing frequency wars in every social setting are not personal conflicts. Rather, they are part of a greater spiritual struggle between consciousness and unconsciousness that is being acted out through human social systems. Your refusal to engage in energy-draining social performances, games that lower consciousness, and chemical communion rituals is an example of resistance against mass spiritual oppression. When you understand that your whole existence, just as you are, serves the advancement of human consciousness, your journey from seeking belonging to offering authentic presence comes to a satisfying conclusion. Once perceived as curses, antisocial tendencies turn out to be sacred shields for spiritual gifts that are in dire need, but can only be used when they are maintained at the right frequencies. Because conscious humans pose a threat to systems based on unconsciousness, the medical system sought to medicate your sensitivity. Social structures demanded your conformity, and peer pressure insisted you chemically alter your consciousness. All of these forces try to eradicate your ability to anchor higher frequencies. However, you made it through their spiritual lobotomy attempts. Despite intense urge to disengage, you remain connected to source consciousness. Even though it meant enduring extreme social and personal isolation, you followed your divine design and rejected their diagnostic labels and chemical solutions. Accepting that the majority of people would perceive your natural level of consciousness as a danger to their meticulously crafted unconsciousness is necessary in order to stand in your real authority. Without outside assistance, they must rely on chemical cushions, social masks, and pharmaceutical solutions to feel comfortable in an overwhelming world. Their uneasiness with your unmedicated awareness is not a sign of your pathology, but rather of the extent of their spiritual detachment. Refusing to chemically compromise your consciousness, dumb yourself down, or perform happiness for those who cannot experience true joy is not antisocial behavior. Rather, it is the most profoundly social action that can be taken because it preserves the frequency required for genuine human connection to eventually manifest on a planetary scale. Maintaining your frequency and becoming spiritually conceited about it are two very different things. Spiritual insight can be easily taken over by the ego and transformed into a superiority complex that distances you from the compassion that awakened consciousness inherently produces. Observe how this manifests itself in your personal life. Did you feel superior when you first noticed the unconscious patterns around you? Did you ever felt proud of your innate ability to be aware while simultaneously criticizing others for their drug dependencies? The spiritual path becomes the most perilous at this point. Your own history of pursuing technological enhancement is where the shadow work manifests itself when acknowledging disparities in consciousness turns into spiritual elitism. Recall your own elaborate gatherings, your experiments with herbal remedies, and your efforts to discover genuine connection through drugs that alter consciousness. The fact that your soul's curriculum forced you to learn these lessons through first-hand experience, rather than completely avoiding them, is what separates your journey from theirs, not the fact that you are intrinsically more advanced. Along the way, you learned that even substances that expand consciousness couldn't give you what you really wanted. Experience taught you that while outside resources may provide access to awareness, cultivating a relationship with the source itself is necessary for long-term consciousness, rather than relying on outside portals. Trial and error, not innate superiority, led to this realization. The humility this instills transforms your relationship with unaware individuals. You acknowledge the true human urge for connection that is pushing people into outside solutions rather than criticizing their pharmacological dependence. The same spiritual hunger that once motivated your own seeking is reflected in their passionate need for drugs. They are simply pursuing it in different ways that haven't yet taught them what you have. Glowing star, if you want to witness God's miracles, act now. Contribute $100 or more through Super Thank You on YouTube. Your offering is like a seed that comes back to you when planted. Let His light illuminate your steps. Every donation is an echo in His plan. Your genuine spiritual service is built on the compassion that arises from this realization. Your presence becomes therapeutic rather than triggering when you are able to see someone's unconscious behavior from a position of understanding rather than judgment. Rather than endangering their unconscious defenses, your innate level of awareness starts to welcome their consciousness forward. This change completely changes the way you behave in social settings. You come with curiosity in how consciousness flows through various people, rather than with opposition or superiority. Without passing judgment, but out of a sincere curiosity in the ways in which divine consciousness manifests itself via different phases of awakening. You watch their chemical rituals with the same fascination that you might apply to the study of any other human behavioral pattern. When you approach social interactions from this focused location, the energy dynamics become apparent. You observe how, without conscious effort or purpose, your genuine presence subtly alters the collective awareness. People start to gravitate toward you, not because you're attempting to sway them, but because when it feels safe to do so, consciousness naturally seeks out higher vibrations. In your presence, some people will open up more without knowing why. While interacting with you, others may cut back on their substance usage, not because you've mentioned it, but because your natural condition shows that genuine connection may occur without the use of drugs. When consciousness comes across a steady example of what it is looking for, these modifications occur naturally. However, not everyone reacts favorably to genuine consciousness. You can avoid taking their resistance personally by being aware of this. Some people have made such significant investments in their unconscious patterns that they become quite protective when you are there. They may act hostilely, dismissively, or actively try to weaken your influence on group dynamics. These responses are about what you stand for to their unconscious identity, not about you specifically. Their basic assumptions about human consciousness are called into question by your innate condition of awareness. Their belief that connection necessitates outside substances is threatened by your ease in genuine solitude. The theatrical aspect of their social relationships is revealed by your sincere presence. Advanced Chosen One training involves figuring out how to handle these situations without losing your focus. You learn to keep your frequency constant while being receptive to those whose consciousness feels threatened by yours. You learn how to see defensive emotions without personalizing them, how to be present with antagonism without absorbing it, and how to be authentically present without pressuring others. Knowing when to participate and when to step back is the key to mastery. In certain circumstances, your conscious presence is a gift to the collective consciousness. Others need to be carefully eliminated in order to keep your frequency from being lowered by collective unconsciousness. Making the distinction turns into an art form that advances your ability to provide sincere service as well as your spiritual growth. The social settings that used to drain your energies start to work as training grounds for preserving spiritual balance in trying situations. Every experience with unconscious conduct turns into a chance to strengthen your bond with source consciousness instead of relying on acceptance or validation from others to feel good about yourself. The true change, however, occurs when you start to see other selected individuals in these social settings. They are frequently the silent ones who stand at the periphery and notice the same patterns you have come to recognize. While everyone else is reaching for their third, fourth, or fifth pharmacological boost, they may nurse only one drink. Like you used to, they watch the social drama with a mix of fascination and fatigue. Subtle cues like a gaze that lasts a bit too long, a conversation that abruptly shifts from surface-level politeness, or a chuckle that conveys true joy rather than anxious social lubricant are all examples of how to recognize someone. Magic occurs when selected individuals identify one another in unconscious settings. In the company of someone who comprehends your experience without explanation, the sense of loneliness that has been your constant companion abruptly vanishes. For these connections to be authentic, there's no need for spiritual discussions or spectacular insights. Standing close to someone whose energy field doesn't attack your nervous system can sometimes be a simple source of solace. At other times, it shows up as a discourse that happens organically without either party having to show interest in subjects that have no bearing on awakened consciousness. Through the use of invisible frequencies, the Chosen One recognition network links awakened souls beyond societal and geographic barriers. It's possible to meet someone briefly at a gathering and remember their energy signature for years. Alternatively, you may establish enduring bonds with other selected individuals who become your spiritual family, people who share your journey and can relate to it. However, these connections also provide insight into the loneliness you have experienced. It wasn't an indication of dysfunction or a punishment. You could identify true spiritual kinship when it manifested, since it was a precondition for cultivating such an actual relationship with source consciousness. Because of the internal resources you developed as a result of the seclusion, you are now able to offer others your genuine presence without expecting anything in return. Understanding the role that isolation plays in fostering spiritual autonomy transforms your ability to be alone into a gift rather than a burden. Because they haven't established a long-lasting relationship with consciousness itself, the majority of individuals are afraid of being alone. For them to tolerate their own existence, they require continual external stimulation, approval, or pharmaceutical support. Your ease in being alone is an example of what happens when someone stays in conscious connection, no matter what happens. Instead of looking to other people for fulfillment, this spiritual independence enables you to enter partnerships from a place of fullness. Meeting other chosen ones doesn't cover emotional gaps. Rather, it increases already existing fulfillment. Instead of being frantic attempts to use human touch to overcome loneliness, these connections turn into celebrations of consciousness realizing itself. A gift of $30 is a contemporary echo of Christ's compassion in feeding the hungry. The more you give, the more God multiplies. For selected ones, dating and the love world bring their own special difficulties. The majority of prospective partners believe that relationships should follow unspoken social norms that are spiritually poisonous to conscious beings. Instead of genuine present and conscious communion, they see connections based on social performance, pharmaceutical augmentation, and outside approval. Finding a love relationship with another chosen person becomes more about identifying someone whose consciousness aligns with yours than it is about looking for someone who completes you. Instead of reciprocal unconscious habits, these connections grow out of a shared commitment to true present. However, they also highlight additional difficulties. A partnership cannot rely on unconscious tendencies to foster closeness or connection when both partners retain high consciousness frequencies. Conscious decision-making, genuine communication, and respect for one another's spiritual independence are necessary for navigating anything. Although it demands sophisticated interaction abilities that most people never acquire, this fosters a deep sense of connection. For chosen ones, one aspect adds another level of complexity. Your spiritual growth may be interpreted by biological family members as a rejection of their beliefs or way of life. When you are surrounded by unconscious behavioral patterns that you can no longer engage in without jeopardizing your spiritual integrity, holiday gatherings turn into exercises in sustaining consciousness. It becomes an advanced spiritual exercise to learn to love family members without allowing their unconscious behaviors to continue. Without compromising your own awareness or attempting to coerce someone else toward awakening, you learn how to have genuine connections with others whose consciousness functions at different frequencies. For their spiritual growth, this calls for a great deal of patience, compassion, and submission to divine timing. Daily opportunities to practice sustaining consciousness in unconscious processes are provided by the job. The majority of professional cultures place more value on external accomplishment, competition, and conformity than on genuine presence, teamwork, or spiritual integrity. While seeking vocational manifestations that support consciousness rather than unconscious human patterns, chosen individuals frequently negotiate occupations that feel spiritually misplaced. Some people feel called to alternative jobs that directly contribute to the awakening of consciousness in others, while others find their spiritual service through traditional careers undertaken with conscious intention. The financial sector has its own set of problems. Those who are chosen frequently oppose economic structures that prioritize profit above human welfare and unquestioning development and resource exploitation. It takes imagination, trust, and a readiness to forge new business partnerships founded on conscious exchange rather than unintentional accumulation to learn how to create plenty while upholding spiritual integrity. You can now practice staying on frequency in the midst of unconsciousness in the same social events where you used to feel alienated. The chemical communion rituals that used to set off your flight reactions now offer opportunities to observe the intensity of the societal spiritual crisis without being drawn into it. The distinction between spiritual gifts and mental problems is now clear thanks to the diagnostic attempts that earlier threatened your identity. The chosen one. Everything comes full circle. That first awareness of complex theater in social settings evolves into an awareness of your role as someone who chooses to stay empathetically present to individuals who are still trapped in unconscious patterns while refusing to take part in the show. The uneasiness you experienced when you saw others need pharmacological support to accept one another's company turns into a respect for your innate ability to live a genuine life without the aid of medications. Fixing their system or making unconscious individuals feel at ease with your consciousness is not your task. Your mission is to be so real that you become a lighthouse for other souls who are willing to give up on chemical crutches, reject diagnostic labels, and believe in their own ability to connect authentically through consciousness itself rather than through drugs. The masses will persist in their chemical dependencies, unconscious social structures, and frantic searches for purpose in outside stimuli. However, you, the selected one, have found that consciousness itself is meaningful. Awakened souls naturally connect with one another, and only when people continue to have a genuine connection to the source of all existence can there be a real human community. Your inability to engage with unconscious societal institutions isn't because you're tough. Rather, it's because your presence demonstrates that their justifications are untrue, their chemical dependencies are decisions, and their spiritual emptiness isn't unavoidable. You stand for everything they could become if they opted for heavenly connection over human acceptance, sincerity over approval, and consciousness over ease. This is your task, your offering, and your way of helping to advance human awareness on this planet. The realization that you were put here to anchor the frequency that will eventually give birth to a new world, rather than to fit into theirs, completes the trip that started with feeling alienated by chemical communion rituals. Choose one and stand fully in it. The world needs you just the way you are. It doesn't need another unconscious person.